I'm posting this from a ranger station that I'm not gonna name. It's my 5th one in 11 years. There's 2 of us on rotation here. The other one's asleep in the next room. Her name's Lisa. She's 26. She's been with the service 2 years. By my count, Lisa has about 3 weeks. I'm telling you that up front so you know what kind of post this is. This isn't a story about a thing that happened to me one time. It's a story about a thing that has been happening to me on and off for 11 years. It started up near the Boundary Waters. The first rule they teach you when you sign up at a ranger station up north is simple. If you hear someone calling your name from the woods at night, you don't answer. Nobody really explains why. The older rangers say it the way you'd say not to leave the milk out. Or practical, matter of fact. A thing you do because you want to keep things working. You ask why and they just shrug. You ask again and they change the subject. The first time I heard the rule, it came from a senior ranger named Heather. We were sitting on the porch of the station, and the dark was doing what the dark does up there, pressing in close, pretending to listen. And she said it the way you'd hand somebody a recipe. I asked her why. She said, if I explain it, you'll think you understand it, and you'll do something stupid the first time it happens. Then she went inside. I've been a ranger 8 years before I broke that rule. Well, before I had to. I worked out of a station near the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. There were 3 of us on rotation: Marcus, Heather, and me. Most days I picked up trash, talked to tourists. Once or twice a season, somebody did something stupid, and we'd haul them out on a sled. Mostly, it was quiet. Until late October, when Carl Pellichet disappeared. Carl was a hunter. He came up every fall with a friend named Doug. They'd been doing it for years. Pull off the highway, drive an hour into the backcountry, set up at one of the registered camps, stay out for a week. Carl filed his permit on the 18th. By the 21st, his wife called the station because she hadn't heard from him. In our country, that's not unusual, but Carl's wife was specific. Carl always called from the trailhead before he drove home. He'd never missed it. She'd been married to him 31 years. She knew. So, I drove out. It was cold the way late October gets up there. That clean, hollow cold that makes your sinuses ache. The trees were mostly bare. The ground had a thin crust of frost that crunched under my boots. I parked at the trailhead. Carl's truck was still there. Doug's was too. That was the first thing that was wrong. If something had happened to Carl, heart attack, a fall, anything, Doug would have hiked back out and driven for help. And Doug was 62 and a former EMT. He didn't just sit out there. Both trucks were locked. The keys weren't in them. I called dispatch on the radio in my own truck, let them know I was going in. It was a 5-mile hike to their camp. I wasn't scared yet. I was confused. I was annoyed even, because the sun would set in 4 hours, and I didn't want to hike back in the dark. Carl and Doug had probably gotten themselves into something stupid. Maybe a broken ankle, somebody dragging somebody else, getting lost. I'd find them, call it in, we'd send a sled. That's what I told myself. It was about a mile from camp that I noticed a silence. Northern forest is never quiet. Even in late fall, you've got squirrels, blue jays, the occasional crow, wind in the pines, deer moving where you can't see them. The forest hums. You don't notice the hum until it stops. The hum had stopped. I kept walking. The camp was set up the way you'd expect. A 2-person tent, both bags inside, both unzipped, a cold fire pit, a bear canister, untouched, a folding chair next to the pit, with a coffee mug on the ground beside it. The mug had frozen at the bottom. There'd been coffee in it. No Carl, no Doug. I looked around the camp first. Nothing torn up, no signs of an animal. Their gear was in good order. and there was a rifle leaning against a tree, which is a thing no hunter does on purpose. Carl's wallet was in the tent. Doug's glasses were folded neatly on top of his sleeping bag. I went back to the trail. 2 sets of boot prints led north, away from the camp, in the frost. They were sloppy. Long strides. Off balance. Whoever made them had been moving fast. I followed. The prints went about a quarter mile before something happened to them. I want you to understand what I'm describing. I've tracked a lot of things in my 8 years. Deer, bear, wolves, lost kids, drunk fishermen. I know what tracks look like when somebody's running. I know what tracks look like when someone's hurt. I know what tracks look like when somebody's been picked up and carried. These tracks went from boots to bare feet. There was no transition, no discarded shoes. The boots stopped, mid-stride, and the next print in the frost was a bare human foot. As if Carl had taken one step in his boots, and the next step in nothing at all. The bare feet kept going north. A few yards on, the gait changed. Handprints appeared in the frost alongside the footprints. He dropped on all fours. I stood there for a long time. Long enough that the cold got under my coat and started working on my fingers. The professional thing, the right thing, would have been to turn around, hike back to the truck, call it in, get a team out there at first light. I'd like to tell you that I did consider it, but I just kept walking. I found Doug about a half-mile north of where the prints changed. He was in a tree, not hanging by a rope. There was no rope. He was up in the branches, 10 or 12 feet off the ground, bent backward over a fork in the trunk, like someone had set him there. His arms were down. His head was back. His eyes were open and frosted white. He was opened up, stomach to sternum. The cut was clean, surgical, but the meat was still there. I need you to understand that because it's what made me stop being confused and start being something else. An animal that kills a man doesn't leave him in a tree. An animal that kills a man eats him. Doug hadn't been eaten. He'd been opened and arranged and left. Like somebody had been looking for something inside him and walked off without taking what they found. I stood under that tree for a while. The forest was still silent. I tried the radio. Static. I tried it on 3 different channels. Static. The sun was lower than it should have been. I'd lost time somewhere. More than I should have on the hike, and the woods had started to gray out at the edges. I turned around and walked back. I want to tell you I walked. I want to tell you I kept my pace. The truth is, I started slow and got faster. And by the time I was at the camp, I was almost running. And after the camp, I was running. And I didn't stop running until I could see my truck through the trees. That's when I heard my name. It came from off trail, to the left, somewhere back in the dark. Not loud. Conversational. The voice was, and this is the part I keep going back to, the voice was Marcus's. Like Marcus had walked 5 miles into the woods and was calling to me from behind a tree. Hey, you out there? I stopped running. The first rule. I didn't answer. I got into the truck and locked the doors, and I drove. The station was lit when I got back. Marcus's truck was in the lot. I want to tell you I felt relieved. I didn't. I felt like I was walking into a room where somebody had moved the furniture an inch. Marcus was at the desk. He looked up when I came in. He looked normal. Tired the way we're all tired in October, but normal. Hey, he said. You find him? I told him about Doug. Told him about the prints. I left out the voice in the woods. I don't know why. It felt like a thing you don't say out loud inside the station. He sat with it for a second. Then he said, "Did you call me from out there?" I said no. He said, That's weird. Heather radioed me about an hour ago and said you'd called in. Said you were yelling for me. She said it didn't sound right and she hung up. The coffee maker was making the sound coffee makers make. I told him I hadn't called. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "I'm gonna go check the perimeter." He took his flashlight and his sidearm, and he went out the back door. And I watched him through the window as he walked toward the tree line. And I watched him walk into the tree line. And I watched the dark take him. I waited. He didn't come back. I locked every door in the station. I called Heather on her cell. It went to voicemail. I called the sheriff. The line rang. It kept ringing. Nobody ever picked up. I tried the dispatch radio. Static. It was full dark by then. The station has big windows on 3 sides because it was built in the 70s, and nobody who designed it ever thought somebody might want to hide inside it. The light was on inside and the dark was outside, and I could see myself reflected in the glass, like I was somebody else looking in. That's when I heard Marcus calling my name. It came from the tree line, where he'd gone in. "I think I found something. Come help me." His voice, the cadence, right. The tone, right. The little catch he had when he said my name, the way he did it like a question. "I want to tell you I didn't move. I want to tell you the rule held." I almost went out. I had my hand on the door handle when I heard my own voice off to the side of the building, calling Marcus. "Marcus! Marcus, where are you?" It was me. Not an imitation. Me. The voice I've heard in recordings and hated. The voice I used to order coffee. My voice calling out to a coworker who was already gone. The 2 voices kept calling. Mine. His. Sometimes overlapping. Sometimes apart. They walked the perimeter. I could hear them moving around the building. I could hear feet in the frost. I could hear knees. Sometimes, when whatever was making that sound went down on all 4s. I stood in the middle of the station with the lights on, and I listened to myself look for my friend. I listened to my friend look for me. And neither of us was there. The voices stopped a little before 3. I sat at the desk for the next 4 hours. I didn't move. I had a cup of coffee in front of me that had gone cold and then frozen at the rim because the heater had cut out at some point, and I hadn't noticed. When the windows started to gray, I stood up. I want to tell you I felt brave. I didn't. I felt the way you feel after a long flight, when the part of you that was scared has been used up, and what's left is just the body, doing what bodies do. I went to the door. I unlocked it. I stepped out. Nothing happened. The forest was the way the forest was supposed to be. There was a chickadee somewhere, working through its little 4-note song. There was wind. There was sun, low and thin, and doing its best. Marcus's truck was in the lot. The driver's side door was open, and I hadn't seen him open it. There was frost on the seat. The sheriff arrived around 7. Someone had picked up my call from the night before. There had been a delay, a bad relay, something nobody could explain to me later. They sent 2 deputies, a search team, a dog. I told them what I found. I left out the voices. They found Marcus by 10. He was about 100 yards into the tree line, in a maple, 10 feet up, opened the same way Doug had been opened. The cut, clean. The meat still there. They found Carl by noon. Carl was alive. He'd made a kind of nest about 1.5 miles from his original camp, scraped down into the leaf litter against the side of a fallen tree. He was naked. His hair had grown in a way that didn't make sense for a man missing for 4 days. His skin had a coloration to it that wasn't frostbite, and wasn't anything I'd seen on a body before, alive or otherwise. He didn't fight when they took him. He didn't speak. He looked at me when they walked him past me toward the ambulance. He looked at me, and he smiled. His smile was the wrong shape. Not too wide, not too toothy, just set wrong on his face, like a smile somebody else had put there from outside. They put him in a hospital in Duluth, then in a state facility outside Minneapolis. I went and saw him once, a few months later. I don't even know why. He didn't speak the whole visit. He sat in a chair and watched me, and he smiled with that wrong smile. When I was leaving, he said one thing. He said it in my voice. He said, "Hey, good to see you, man." They found Heather that same afternoon. She'd never come to work that night. She'd been at her house, in her bed, dead for what the coroner estimated was about 18 hours by the time the deputy got there. Heart attack. 41 years old. The kind of thing they don't catch because nobody thinks to look. Which means the radio call Marcus took, the one where Heather said I called in, the one that drew Marcus into the tree line, it never happened. Heather wasn't on the radio that night. Heather wasn't anywhere that night. I think about it because the voice that talked to Marcus on the radio was Heather's. The voice that pulled him outside was a voice that, by the time he heard it, had been dead for hours. Whatever this thing is, whatever was out there, it doesn't need a person to take a voice. It just needs the voice to have existed somewhere. It can pull them out of the air after they're gone, maybe long after. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand the rule about not answering, the one Heather taught me. The rule isn't about the woods. The woods are just where you happen to be standing. The rule is about voices. Any voice. From anywhere. If a voice you know calls your name and you can't account for the body, you don't answer. I followed that rule. I kept following it. I'm posting this story tonight because I need to tell you what happens to people who follow it. I took bereavement leave, then regular leave. Then I went to my supervisor and told him I couldn't go back to that station. He said he understood. He pulled some strings. He got me reassigned to a forest in eastern Washington. I packed up. I moved. The new station was different. More wet. Greener in a different way. Different smell of dirt. I had a new partner. His name was Owen. He'd been doing this work since he was 19. And he had a small bad joke he told every morning that I started to look forward to. For 4 months, the job was, well, the job. In late February, a college student went missing on a day hike. I went out with a search team. We covered the trail to the falls. About 2 miles in, Owen stopped and tilted his head and said, "You hear that?" I had heard it. The forest had gone quiet. I knew before I saw a single track what we were going to find. We found her in a hemlock. She was open the same way. The cut was clean. The meat was still there. That was the first time I understood. I left the service for 2 years after that. I tried construction. I tried driving a truck. I tried selling paint at a hardware store outside Spokane. In year 3, a hiker went missing on a state park trail 2 miles from my apartment. He was found in a cedar tree, opened with the cut clean and the meat still there. The story made the local news for one cycle. Nobody connected it to me. I was a guy in a hardware store, half a country away from the Boundary Waters. I started looking back through old reports. There were 5 other incidents matching the pattern, in 5 different states, in 5 different years. Each one had happened within 30 miles of wherever I had last spent a night. 2 of them I hadn't even noticed at the time because I didn't know to look. I went back to rangering. There didn't seem to be a point to not. The pattern didn't stop. I just stopped pretending it would. I have, in the time since, tested some things. I've tested whether moving fast helps. It doesn't. I've tested whether telling the partner helps. The one time I tried, 3rd station, partner named Brian, 2 kids. Brian quit within the week and moved his family back to his parents' farm in Iowa. 6 days after the move, Brian's brother went missing on a county road and was found in a stand of cottonwoods, opened, cut clean, meat still there. The brother had never been to the woods Brian and I worked in. He'd been in Iowa his whole life, and now I have a new rule, and it's the only rule I know that the older rangers couldn't have taught me, because they didn't know it. The rule is, don't tell them. If you tell them, they leave. If they leave, the people closest to them get it instead. The thing isn't following a place. It isn't following the partner. It's following something the partner has after they've been near me long enough. I don't know what to call what I am. I'm not infected. I'm not becoming. I haven't grown anything new. I haven't lost anything I had. I'm a man, the same as I was 11 years ago, going to work and then coming home. The simplest word for it is date. Lisa's asleep in the next room. She told me the other morning over coffee that her grandmother taught her never to whistle indoors because it called bad luck. She said she still doesn't whistle indoors, even though she knows it's silly. She asked me if I had any rules like that. I said no. By my count, based on the spacing of the others, and the time I've been at the station, and the way the forest sounds outside the window right now, Lisa has about 3 weeks before whatever happens to people who get close to me happens to her. I haven't told her. I won't. I tried once. I'm not gonna try again. I'm posting this because I want to exist somewhere, not as a warning. There's no warning that helps. I'm posting it because, at some point, somebody else is going to figure out the pattern, and when they do, they're going to need to know what the rules are. The first rule is the one Heather taught me. If a voice you know calls your name, and you can't account for the body, you don't answer. The second rule is the one I learned in Washington. The forest going quiet means it's already decided. The third rule is the one I learned with Brian. Don't tell the people you love. They're not safer for knowing. They're only safer if they were never near you in the first place. I'm going to bed soon. The window in my room faces the tree line. Sometimes late, I hear my own voice out there. Or Heather's, Marcus's, Owen's, Brian's, a few others. I haven't answered any of them. Tonight, for the first time, I heard Lisa's. I'm not going to answer that one either.